Artlist.io.
You might know me as the guy who can make shit happen. Well, so can you. And you can do that by joining me on my Purpose Your Passion podcast. I want to make the world a better place. And to do that, I know that we all have to be better people. So I've taken the time to go ahead and interview some select individuals that I know are making a huge impact in their lives, the lives of the people around them, and probably in yours, and you didn't even know it. So go ahead and join me in the following interview where we're going to learn how to take care of one another, ourselves, and the world. Thanks. On today's interview, we're going to talk to Pamela Brode. Now, Pamela Brode is a wellness coach, and she's been helping people for a long time lose weight and keep it off. She herself had a struggle that helped take her on a journey that she's been able to share with others, and her success helped others find theirs. She's also written a book recently to discuss a whole lot of her philosophy and her understanding about what she's learned as a wellness coach over the years and what it takes to keep the weight off. So join me in this interview today as we're going to discover a whole lot of things about her, a few about me, and hopefully a lot about you. Stay tuned and purpose your passion. Hey everybody, John E Avocado here with Purpose Your Passion, and I have with me Pamela Brode, the author of, what's the name of your book?
The Search for Chocolate.
The Search for Chocolate. And then it has a subtitle, The
Bittersweet Journey to Finding Self-Love.
The Bittersweet Journey to Finding Self-Love. So now I've met Pamela, and I was very interested in what she's doing. And we're going to hear her story here in just a second, because as you know, my personal mission is to make the world a better place. And for us to do that, I know that we all have to be better people. So I've been searching out and trying to interview folks that I think are making a difference. And now Pamela, in her book, has tapped it into something that, if you're a viewer, know that's very close to me: positive psychology. The way that we speak to ourselves are the things that we think of ourselves, which are the things that we do for ourselves. So Pamela has written a book about, as a health coach, to help us think about positive psychology and her struggle to use it to lose weight for herself. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. It's so fun because when I met you, I was like, you meet people who believe in the same things, right? And so we connect, and I'm definitely all about making the world a better place. So yes, I became a health coach out of nowhere. I was, I'm 70 pounds less than I was when I was growing up in high school. You would never think that I would become a health coach. I could barely run the 1 minute mile, right? I mean, no way. But I had worked on but I struggled with weight my entire life. And so really what I believe, and I'll tell you this, and then I'll backpedal to my story, but
sure.
I do believe that our biggest pain point, the thing that we struggle the most in life with, almost the thing that we're most ashamed of, the hardest part, is really our gift to share in this world. Because when we overcome it, we can help others see what they couldn't see themselves. And that's really, for me, how I became a health coach. Somebody believed in me when I was struggling, and I did everything under the sun to try to lose weight. I lost some weight at some point, but I could never get it off because it's something deeper. And what was really happening was not just about, getting into the clothes or feeling good. It was really me holding myself and really feeling safe by keeping the weight on. And so, if you want, I could jump into telling how it all began.
Sure, absolutely. Please do, Pamela.
Yeah. So really how my story kind of started was when I was, and bear with me, it gets a little bit, it is kind of, not for the faint of audience, but for when I was 12 years old, something happened with a boy that I was very good friends with, and I didn't want it to happen. And I didn't speak up. And I was thinking more about him in that setting. There were other people around, and I didn't really want to embarrass him. And I stuffed it down. And that began a trend. My mother always told me, if you gain weight, boys won't like you. And I thought that was a great plan. So I began to gain weight. And I found that chocolate was really something that, and as we know, maybe not everyone knows, but chocolate actually serves as an aphrodisiac for women. There's something, it's not the same as men and women, but a woman is really guaranteed to get an orgasm from eating chocolate. And so women go to chocolate because it makes them feel great. It actually produces hormones that makes them instantly feel great. So that's how the book became, because I started with this incident, and unfortunately it, compounded through the years with a lot of women who go through experiences they didn't want to happen, whether they were, raped or abused. Sometimes you find that women like that will continue to attract that abuse because they haven't really been able to stick up for themselves. And so for me, it took me 25 years to finally write the letter to this guy to say what happened. And I met up with him. We had a big reunion, and he and I wound up standing next to each other. And he told me how my mom wanted to set us up at one time. And I'm still like, he changed everything. I stopped connecting to men. I was scared. Like, I put all this weight on. I didn't want to, I didn't trust anymore. And he had no clue. And we had this song, and I was singing this song. The song actually says, "You never give up, you always try." But I said the song, "You never give up, you always cry." And he looked at me and said, "Maybe you always cried." And I was just sitting there in all this, like, I was living this life where he didn't even know. And yes. I had never said anything. So I finally wrote a letter, and I had written this letter about 6 years before, saying all of the things, how it, this one moment, and how it led to different things in the book. There's more details of why and how it went. But I had this letter. It was sitting in my drawer for about 6-7 years. And finally I got together with a girlfriend, and she had a similar situation, and she never spoke her truth. So we both got together and we said, we're going to both, and it was around the time where Me Too was coming out, 2019. So women felt more kind of the air of like, we're doing this, right? Mm-hmm. And so we decided, she found his address. She was, in the law, so she could kind of find out where he was. And I sent him the letter, and I put it in the mailbox. And the moment I put that letter in the mailbox, it was completely transformational for me, because now I was saying what I needed to say. And as this story, give you the short version of the story, I found that once I sent the letter, by the way, after I had done all these diets and everything, all of a sudden the program came to me only a couple months later. That's when I actually started to stick to the program that helped me to lose 37 pounds. And I've kept it off for almost 3 years now, and which is also really big, because a lot of people can lose weight, but if you don't change your habits, you gain it back, right? So going back to the story is that then he actually called me, and Johnny, this is where it gets even, deeper, is that I was starting to help women, because once I lost weight, I knew I could help other people do this. That's how I became a health coach. I got into it just because I wanted to lose the weight, and they told me I'm 5 times more likely to keep the weight off if I became a coach.
Oh, so
yeah. I'm not finding this weight, right? I'm not finding it. Yeah, no, right? So I started helping people, and then all of a sudden, my first client was my best friend since I was 3 years old. She's now down 90 pounds. I've helped people lose 118 pounds. I'm helping people it's life-changing if I only helped one person. So I started doing this, and then he called me, and I was like, oh, I didn't think about him calling me. It was my voice together, right?
Yes.
Uh-oh. And thank God, he was an incredibly evolved person. And he said he actually got excited when he saw my letter, when it said my name. He was excited. And then he said, and then I opened it up, and he said, your words don't fall on deaf ears. And that was very comforting. I was like, oh, wow. And he told me his side of it. and he was awkward and he didn't, he actually thought, he liked me, didn't know, he would have never wanted to put me in this position, but I never, and I didn't say these things. And then I went in like freeze mode, because I'm sure a lot of people can relate. How can you have your side of the story, which is it wasn't right, and he have his side of the story? And almost as a victim mentality, we want to go to him. Like, I want to be like, oh my God, he had that. Then who am I to have? So it took me about a year to really, I actually had to call him back. Just time worked out that way. And I had to call him back. And it took me about a year to go, wait, he can have his side of the story and I can have my side of the story. And it doesn't mean it was okay.
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
That's huge. That was huge for me. And so when I called him back, he got off the phone. He really wanted to make sure that we, finished this. And we had a great conversation and he apologized and I accepted his apology. But I got to tell you, Johnny, I was surprised. Yes, I wanted that apology. But the next thing that came out of my mouth was, I forgive you and I forgive myself. Because the truth is, the person I was most upset with was me, because I couldn't trust myself anymore, because I didn't stick up for myself. And in all of the situations after that call, it was like a domino effect, because it was like relationships with men dominoed back into like, oh, they're not evil people. Like, they're not all these things. Like, oh, I can trust me. So the dominoes go back up and it opened up a whole world.
When you lose your villain, when you're evolved enough that you don't need the villain anymore, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, when you realize in life, you realize also things are happening for you and not to you. Do I wish I would have sent this letter? I could have had the conversation 2 years before, but I also had to forgive myself to say I was 12, 13 years old. I didn't have the skill set, right? I didn't know what.
That is a hard part. That was, I'm waiting for somebody who has more time than I to come along and tell us what the 7 steps of despair are for these situations. I'm sure that there is a pattern that we all must somehow repeat, because the remorse and that self-hate, the anger that you have at yourself for your failing, the very words you said for yourself, for not standing up for yourself, for not speaking up for yourself. The first thing you have to do is forgive your 12-year-old self or 11-year-old self or whoever it was for doing the best they could at the time. And then the next forgiveness you have to give is yourself for spending all this part of your life living just half of the story.
Oh my God.
Right?
You're so right. My life, I couldn't imagine if I would have had it at 14 or even 18, what my life would have been. It would have been very different. And as you say, you have to forgive yourself. And then it goes back to what I told you originally. It's like, but this is totally my story. Like, this is part of where I've come from and what I have to contribute and to bring back. And, I worked with teenagers in a similar situation. I was able to protect them. And it was like, that's, if you're in a situation, like, you have to speak up. And now that I get to do that with my kids. So the impotence for this book, so it started with the chocolate, right? So my relationship with sugar and food started as that, wanting to put the weight on, wanting to not be seen, to be safe. And I realized that it doesn't really matter. The truth is how much weight you gain, you still could be unsafe as a woman. You still have to learn how to just speak up for yourself. But when I lost the weight, that confidence really came in. And then about the other inciting incidents is that, and what is really part of the psychology of where my book came from, it starts with the food. But I had a dear friend, and I was pursuing a career in acting. That was my background in musical theater. And my friend, who was doing really great, and he was the life of everything. He would walk around saying, "Dare to dream." And he was this very, boisterous and, flamboyant, amazing guy. named Christopher, and he became a really good friend of mine. And my only award I've ever gotten, Johnny, was I was given the award for being the best friend in first grade, because I always made sure that nobody was left behind, right? I always wanted to make sure all the kids were okay and taken care of. That was just at a very early age who I was. So my dear friend, unfortunately, committed suicide. And I didn't see it coming at all. And I was with him for 3 days before he did it and never saw it. And this is what changed my life. And this is where you talk about the change of your habits and this moment as at 25 changed my entire life, because I realized if I was so in my own crap, if I was so in my own beating myself up, in my own despair, in my auditions weren't going right, whatever, I can't blame myself that I didn't see it. But I definitely decided in that moment, which is the start of this book and the journey, is that in that moment, something had to change. I had to stop being so into my own world and start to be able to see what was really out there. And I started to search, and I went looking in spirituality, and I went to several different places, and I almost got, close calls, and, my life would have been pretty scary in certain areas, but it's really the journey of that, which, went from the Kabbalah Center to, the place where, let's just say, a place where very famous people hang out. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
I could actually write that in the book, but what?
We've all got to take a journey, man. And that's what makes the book good, right?
Absolutely. That's what it is. It's a journey. And then I go to Israel, and I realize that, in the very end of the days, it's really all about, like what you said in the beginning, loving ourselves, and we are whole and complete. And we don't really have to look in outside places to make ourselves, to look for that validation. And actually writing the book was the complete circle of self-acceptance, of saying, this is my story. I don't need to be afraid or scared or shamed. In fact, it is my hope that when I'm most vulnerable, I might touch someone else who doesn't realize that they don't have to be ashamed of their journey. Because it's all universal, right? We all feel those same feelings of pain and struggle, and I'm not enough and unworthy. And we all have that underneath.
Absolutely.
If we just stop listening to I don't know if I could say BS on your podcast, right? But I believe BS is two things, right? Is bullshit. It's also our belief system, right? And if we listen to that BS belief system that wants to try to tell us we're not enough, then we will stop that connection from really coming to our hearts and really connecting to people.
It's absolutely from my work. I mean, that's what I chased down, was what the psychology and the true science that we understood about how those mechanisms within the mind work. And it's devastating what you can do to yourself. We are absolutely codified. What we say to ourselves is who we become. And there is nobody that says something louder to you than your own voice inside your head. And then when you speak other people's words in your voice to yourself is even more damning. I mean, that is, of all, we talked about beginnings and transformations, another large one for me, and for a number of people that I know, was Napoleon Hill's book, was the Think and Grow Rich. And all of the concepts. I mean, the man was just, what he packs in that book is amazing. But the concepts about the auto hypnosis and the self-suggestion that he was understanding and beginning to try to share with people way back then is the things that we are really truly understanding now. And that self-speak is so important. And everybody's journey, it doesn't matter who you hear from, that is a critical component when you can start to speak better of yourself, when you can speak highly of yourself. Much of the things that I do, and I'm sure that probably in your own practice, you find that one of the great ways, one of the steps for advancement, for movement, is to educate and to experience, right? And so if we can get folks, if we can get our clients or get ourselves or our friends to take those first steps, we started to talk about that. Just those first steps give you enough strength and understanding and confidence to take however many more it takes after that. But it's that first one. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was your coaching practice. And how with a couple, your book that you have here, you also have taken it to the streets to say, right, to the people in your own practice, and get with somebody on that personal level, because that first hurdle is so important for us to get over. And I coach is the term I have to use. That's the one everybody uses. I felt really weird about saying that, but I've come to embrace it. But as a coach, that's one of our greatest beginning attributes that we can share with a client or with someone, is to help you get over that first hurdle.
Absolutely.
Is that, do you find that true as with your clients as well?
Absolutely. I think the hurdle, and you nodded, Napoleon Hill. And when I hear Napoleon Hill, I think one of the things that was so amazing about him was that he actually went to learn from all of the greats. He went to find out, what's Dale Carnegie? Why are these great people doing great things, right? And that starts with, and I'm a big Tony Robbins fan too. Like, really talks about like, who you surround yourself. And I think that first step is very connected with who you surround yourself with. A lot of my clients will be like, you believed in me before I believed in them, because I know if they call me up and they're in, I will help you. Now, it's hard when you're one foot out the door, and this sense of cognitive dissonance, which is why I shared the story of the letter I sent. Because if I had this desire to lose weight, but I have this thing that's keeping me safe, even though I don't know it, it's creating this push and pull, and it's pulling me back every single time. So we have to turn around and look at it. And that's what coaches do. We can see what you can't see in your blind spot, right? And so we can actually say, whoa, what is that thing? Or what is, like you said, the voices that are getting in your head that do not belong to you, right? That you're now telling yourself in your own voice. Mm-hmm. Is that I can't really do that true? Like I had a teacher, and one of the reasons I finally wrote this book, I had a teacher. I was studying improv comedy at the Groundlings. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Groundlings. So the Groundlings is basically the place where it's either two schools that go to Saturday Night Live. It's either the Groundlings or Second City. And and people from Saturday Night Live come and basically cherry pick people. So the people from the Groundlings were your Phil Hartman, Rita Rudner's from there, Elisa Kudrow, Will Ferrell, like all of the Pee Wee Herman. I mean, all the greats, right? It's like half of the people on Saturday Night Live are from there. Okay.
Yeah.
So in improv comedy, that's where you want to go. If you like characters, if you like more like political, you want to go to Second City. Okay. Right. So I really wanted to I had seen Will Ferrell. I mean, I saw all these guys and I was really into improv. So I made it up to this point, writing lab. Each level you had to get asked to the next level. So when I got up to writing lab, it was pretty exciting, but I didn't consider myself a writer. I was an actor, and I could take you giving me criticism as an actor all day long, because I got the punches in New York. I went to school, like I could handle it. I've been doing it long enough. Right. But as a writer, I couldn't take the punches. And my first day at class wasn't really class. It was more like an audition, but who knew? First day of class, me and this guy got together and we wrote this little like skit and we presented it. And our teacher, who was kind of like a C-level actor, you'd know him. He was on Ellen. Anyways, you'd know him if you saw him. So he was kind of like a celebrity in that world. He ripped us apart. He said, that was the worst scene. You guys think that's funny? And I was like devastated. I was totally devastated. And here's the thing. I pulled back. I never gave the rest of the class. I decided I was done. I was hurt. Things were going on in my life. I'd had like all these things. And so I just thought, I'm not a writer. And then about a year ago, I turn on TV and I'm watching TV and this great show with Kimmys playlist. The actor who plays Kimmy's brother is the guy I did a freaking scene with. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I look it up and I go through his page and he's got writing credits. I gave up He did not.
Yep.
Right. And that really sunk into me like, what? I just decided I wasn't enough.
You decided you were done. Yeah.
I decided I was done. And the whole class, like I could not get up there. Like I could not get myself back. I had just go. So when you see that, you have two different avenues. Did he have something else that I didn't have? No, he wrote the same freaking dumb scene. It was funny to us. It was just Jewish vaudeville thing, right? He just didn't let himself get destroyed. So, right. When we realize that a bike, if nobody like rides your bike once and falls down and just never rides a bike again, I mean, I guess it's a really bad bike, but most kids don't, right? The babies, look what they do. They learn to walk and we're like, they fall on their face. Yay! Right? We encourage them and we're really aware that you don't go over there and go, oh, are you okay? Don't make them feel bad that yay, get back up, walk 2 more steps, fall back again. That's what we got to do. And so, so some of my clients, I know you asked me what I went around the bend on this conversation, but so some of my clients are ready. They're like, I'm done. Or like their metabolism just changed and, they went through menopause or something like that. And I'm like, oh, these are the easiest clients because I'll give you the program. You're ready to go. Great. Other people are just scared because they've failed time and time and time again. And they don't know that this time they're really going to be successful. So as a coach, we get to say, you're going to do this. Like, you got this. I got you. I actually found I have an incredible coach myself. We as coaches, we have to have coaches, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And he's like taught me to like, oh my God, like get back to my own self, to what I actually learning today, I could share with you.
Please.
Right. Yeah. I'm really learning that I kept looking for validation outside. And, that's what this also the book is, right? Looking and seeking for other people's validation, and really doesn't matter about anybody else's validation. It's when you tap into your heart, not your head. Don't think from your head, because that's a BS place to think from, right? But when we tap into our hearts, right, we really know, and we really know who we are. And when we're true to ourselves and we want to create and we're doing something, that's gold. So I don't necessarily with all of my clients go into that as depth, because that would be some of my clients. That's more of a private coaching thing that I do. But most of my health coaching, it is definitely just you're going to do this. You fell? Let's do it again. Let's go back. Okay. Mother's Day came. So what? Right. I think the thing that's most disheartening for me is I've had clients who I want it for them more. I had a woman, she was 400 pounds and she literally couldn't, she's a baby girl. And, I don't want to go into too much detail, but it pained me because I just wanted it so bad for her. And it wasn't her time yet. And we have to allow people to really come to their time. And so as a coach, we can show you the door, but you got to walk through it.
You got to do it.
You got to do it. Like I say, I can show you what to do. You want to lose weight, but you got to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Right. You got to pick up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would lead me into this question. So as somebody, because as coaches, as educators, because that's a lot of what we are, we give our part of ourselves, our passion, our energy, our desire. As you said there, you really rooted for that person even more than they did for themselves. Sometimes you have to you spend a lot of your own energy. How do you keep yourself energized first, and how do you keep yourself connected but detachable from people that you have to be so close to?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. It's not about me. And it took me a long time to realize it's not about me. I can love you. I can hold space for you. But in the end, it's going to be you to do it. And almost the more I push to like, okay, come on, can't you see this and that? Sometimes it's like wasting it's just wasting time, right? So you have to be able to, and anything, coaching, having a family, having friends, right? We see something for our friends or family or people that we care about. We're like, come this way. And if we keep bugging them, pushing them, they're going to react the other way. They're going to be like, screw you. You're always telling me I'm not enough or something like that. And it's not what we're saying. Like, I love you. If you're ready. And I know my coach she did this to me a couple of times. She almost took it away. Like, she's like, maybe you're not ready for it. You know, if you're going to, my health coach was very, pushed on me. Like, you want to do this the way you've done everything else. I don't necessarily use those words to my clients, but I needed to hear that because I've done quit time and time and time again. And so no, if you don't want to do it the same way you did it before, then you got to do it differently. Isn't that the definition of insanity, Johnny? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
I can't. I got my catchphrase is try the guacamole. It's
try the guacamole.
The guacamole, man. Try the guacamole. It's life changing.
Yeah, because you didn't want to try it, right?
I didn't want to try it at all. I tried it. It changed my life. It was one of those first steps that you're like, well, I'm going to make different changes. I don't want to speak about other interviews too much in your interview, but I got to interview another gentleman that I was pretty excited to talk to. And he has a pretty crazy story of his transformation. And the thing that he would say was that again and again, that he had to keep the levity in his life. He had to keep things in perspective or he would have lost hope, And so I love how your energy, that matter, even as we've kind of gone through some of these conversations, that you've been able to keep a smile on your face and you've been able to keep your energy up.
Yeah.
Which is
my energy. Also my clients give me energy. I mean, it's amazing because look, I'm not perfect. Like, this is my journey. I've struggled with food. I've turned to food for emotions and comfort for 3 decades. Okay. So I can't expect that the neural pathways are not going there. Right. It happens to me very often, right? Like almost daily, not daily, but it gets better. Sometimes it's daily and sometimes a month go by. Right. But I often find my nose in the pantry and then I go, oh, I've got an emotion. Let's come back and back paddle. Right. So I have to do it myself, and my clients totally inspire me. They re-inspire me. They're winning. I have a woman, she called me the first week. She was like, I'm just so unhappy. I'm so unhappy. She had 2 small kids. She wasn't working. Her, it was like, should have been like her husband took care of everything, but she didn't have that purpose anymore. She had gained 90 pounds. So really unhappy. And she's like, I just want to like myself again. And I swear to you, 1 week later, she's like, I am loving this, Pamela. I'm so happy. Because she was taking daily action towards herself, and it's changed her momentously. Now she's over 6.5 months. Now she's down about 64 pounds. Her husband, who is very overweight, they used to just like connect on the couch and eating all kinds of stuff. He's now down 60 pounds. She made him start after her because he's down 68 pounds because men, of course, you lose weight faster. So he had a month behind, right? So he could catch up. And she's so happy. She's actually now doing it with me. She's starting to help other people because she feels so great. And so it's just totally transformed everything. So those people really light me up and inspire me. And then in the end of the day, you got to be creative and feed your own self first. It's like that mask, and whatever you do, whether you're a coach, whether you're a mom, whether you're, you work for someone, whoever you are, right? Just like they say, you got to put that mask on first, and you have to find out what that means. I don't know if you find this, Johnny, but I find some people, like, it's very quick. I sometimes say, we have like some journaling to do, and people are really resistant. I was really resistant to journaling, right? To opening that gateway and just saying, do 5 minutes for yourself. Like, nobody wants to just, take that moment. Maybe we're scared. There's so much mixed up in there, but there's a hesitancy. So I say, just start, feed yourself, feed yourself.
So that journaling, I love that you started to talk about that. That's kind of where a lot of folks come to me. I kind of meet where the science meets the mysticism, and the brain to body disconnect, the bandwidth that we have, from what you can do within your mind to what you can do out into the world, is the hurdle that we're constantly up against within our mind. And so all of emotion and whatnot is all our shortcut to get through that, so that we can act in the real world within time to be effective. Getting back to the story, the brain to body bandwidth, what I began to learn there was they began to teach us things, the difference between a reaction and a pre-action. A reaction would be a physical action that your body takes without your regard. A pre-action is something that you've self-determined to do ahead of time. And so when we think about, Navy SEALs or Special Forces guys, and you hear about all these incredible things that they can do, there is a whole mass of stuff that allows them to be what they are, from the specialization to the team that they have behind them, to the terminology that they use to prepare themselves for their missions, to the practices that they had done to precondition themselves with a precision before they get themselves into a situation where a decision would override it. And man, I lost my connection to you.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry. We were talking about.
You're amazing. You are so
I'm so
social.
sorry.
I
I'm
can't
so sorry.
imagine. Oh, it's okay. You're so social. I'm surprised that you didn't, growing up, you didn't feel like, connecting with people, because you're so easy to connect with people. I mean, it's amazing.
I am now. So this is, if you talk to me, John E Avocado is a different person than John Mester. That transformation I went through was truly and absolutely, I went crazy. I don't know if my wife and you talked about, you and my wife kind of got to talking a little bit, and I don't know if she ever
told the crazy part. No.
Told you that part, but yeah, it was like I wanted to write on the walls like an insane person. I felt compelled to do things that an insane person would have felt to do. I nearly institutionalized myself. I thought I was going crazy. I kind of came out of this process with a whole new look on the world and a new way to see things. And what it was is I had met an Apollyon in my life where I had so many obligations. I'm part of the, we all driven different ways. One of the ways that I had been driven in my past was through all these obligations. People would tell me things, I would accept them as truth and then try to fulfill them. So everything from what my religion told me, from what society told me, from whatever word my parents had ever told me, from every slight or misspoken word from a teacher, all that was some direction, some directive I was still trying to fulfill into my adult life. And so one of the great psychological breakthroughs for myself was that moment when I recognized that I could shed off that obligation, that I had self-determination, that the things that others wanted from me was not what I wanted, and what was important was what I wanted. And in that moment was much of what this was, where a lot of this came from. So my own self-story it carries some of the same traits as you and so many other people when we get to that point where you can't contain who you were inside yourself any longer, and you have to be somebody new.
Yeah.
So what I was wanting to ask you, as pertains to your book, is what part of, where do you think you plug into people's lives? How do you think when you try to see the significance that your work does for somebody, how do you see that for yourself? How do you plug into people? Do you stay connected to them, or do they go away from you once you've?
Oh yeah, no, I work with my clients for, I have twofold. One is this program that I coach, and then I also have clients that I go a little bit deeper, like people that need to deal with some of the undercurrent stuff, and I walk them through a whole process that I created called Weightless, which is really like going weightless out of all of the crap that you're holding you down, and really like removing the baggage, the emotional baggage. And what I do on a daily is, most of my clients, I walk them through, I hold their hands through the whole process. So for the first week, I work with them to get into a fat burn, and once they start feeling good, they're not hungry, they're eating, they're taking daily action that they need to lose weight. Then I talk to them on a weekly basis. And our first goal is always to lose the weight, get into a healthy BMI first. And then afterwards, which most of them don't even imagine they could actually be there. So they sometimes, I've had a lot of people who are like 100 pounds overweight and they're like, I just want to lose 15 pounds. And you're like, oh, okay, let's do that first. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, I can actually like stay out of the doctor's radar. And I mean, I have clients who after a week, they're getting off of insulin and, their cholesterol. It's incredible. We're getting off of medications. So I walk with them weekly until they get to that place. And then I help them to solidify those habits. We continue the process to go into optimize their health and then really have ultra health. So I stay in their lives and connected so that, we can continue to keep having health all around. It's not only what you're eating, your mental health, your well-being, all of that. And that is with the, program that I work with. And then on the other end. So yeah, I feel that it's pretty awesome what is possible and what happens for people, once they finally start to believe in themselves. Like I said, the weight is only, to me, it's just the beginning. It's so much more. It means so much more. It means them taking action for themselves. And, the body is the basic need, right? The body has to be well nourished first. If you're dehydrated, if you're, running on coffee, if you're, running to sugar, like all these things, then we can't even get in to the spirituality or into, your soul consciousness because you're running on all of this stuff. So we start to clear away and then I find that once you start, and what I found in my own life, once I stop pushing down, to tell you the truth, lots of shit came down. It's used the word Ezra, but when you stop eating your emotions, you stop pushing down your feelings, my relationship blew up. Like all of a sudden, what I thought I was, settling for was like, we got to look at this. This is not going to work. And although it got ugly for a while, my relationship got a hell of a lot better because I got to actually address it instead of pushing myself down, right? My job, I realized like, oh, I didn't realize I was making myself into a pretzel and trying to please them. And they weren't happy with me trying to please them because I was dancing around that instead of being in me, right? So when you start to actually shed those layers, it's quite amazing. So yeah, I'm there as a resource. I don't go away. I keep in touch with my clients and it's pretty awesome to think about how many people are getting healthy. It's really cool. And
That's
I have like billboards walking around. It's really fun because I get so many referrals. They're like, oh, I saw Corey and she looks amazing. I need what you have. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm very busy, thank God, with just my people walking around and being billboards for me. It's pretty cool.
Oh, well, that's a good place to be. And, as an independent, a person, contracting out for yourself, that's one of the first things that, have to be business minded. That's great that you get enough referrals to keep yourself busy. I've found as
I'm
a
always
coach
happy to help more people,
oh,
but
for sure. You always want more. You
would
always would like to try it for sure. One of the things that I found, and you started to touch on it a little bit, and I've seen it with different coaches of all ilk, because we oftentimes people come to us to solve a particular problem that they think that is what they want to solve. And you kind of hit it right there from the beginning. Is oftentimes, and it's on your Instagram and some other places, you kind of speak up to this a lot. That's why I wanted to make sure we talk about it. Is that you see that there's usually some other underlying problem that we have to fix. Yeah. And as a coach, no matter what problem, often in business, they're like, well, I want my business to do this, or I want to be a better leader this way, or I want to this. Well, let's find out why you're not, or why are the reasons that you're not getting what you want now. Let's first reevaluate that. And through the process of taking them just through the simple step of this first thing that they thought they wanted to get fixed, and we really fix something else, they can recognize the inferential pattern that they can use this in the rest of their life. And again and again, and I hear it across the board, if I can help you get through this one thing, it's like, teach a man to fish. Then you can begin to understand how to apply this to the rest of your life. And I didn't just help you lose weight or help you interact with your clients better. I helped you change your life in a fundamental way to see it differently.
Oh my God, yes. And my waitlist group, I walk these women through a 12-week process, and it's pretty freaking amazing. And they came to me to lose weight. But what they found is they repaired their relationships with their mothers, with their family, with their all of these things, because that was the truth that was holding them back, right? It was what they weren't expressing, which is what I feel like if I don't say my truth, I'll eat my truth, right? I'll eat, other people will drink, other people smoke, other people will do, gamble. We can do all of our things, but when we're not really expressing our truth, we need an outlet or a gateway. And you're right. And so many people, and it's funny because some people, that's probably, you asked me what the challenge is. That's the challenge, because when people don't realize that they're not really ready to see what they aren't looking at, that's something that you have to be ready, and you have to look at your mess, right? Like if I said, Johnny, like, I need you to clean up the living room, but you're like, nothing's wrong with the living room. The living room's fine. And every day you go through the back alley, so you don't have to go through the living room to look at it, right? So then I'm going to say, well, we're going to do some yoga in that living room. You're going to have to look at that room, right? Right. We have to look at it before we clean it up.
It's amazing that you say that, because everybody has a thing, and everybody has a thing, and cleaning it's a universal thing in the house. None of us, and I can't advocate enough to find a partner that compliments you, so they can kind of do the things that you don't like. That makes a good pairing sometimes. But my wife and I, neither one of us, nobody in the house likes to clean. And that is the one thing where everybody will walk around a pile of clothes or something like that needs to get done all day long. We're all looking at each other. We're all like, well, why didn't you do it?
Why didn't you do it? Yeah, I
it bothers you so bad. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah, no, I thought I was the creative. I always thought I was a creative person, and I would meet somebody who would like be able to handle some of the other like more like traditional finance things. And then I married a more creative than me, and his brain does not work on the other end. I mean, my husband draws monsters and aliens for movies, and is also a writer. So it's like he when I say he doesn't work, I say call BS on that, right? He's learned to work on, to only develop that side of his brain. So yeah, I have to pick up the slack that I didn't think I wasn't good at that. Why is it come down to me?
Why am I suddenly in charge of that?
Right.
You want me to do this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My wife has had to become my timekeeper, because much probably like your husband, I get lost in a thought or whatever. And if I haven't set an alarm, or if I don't do something to bring me back to the here and now, I don't care sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good touchstone to have, is to have somebody there to bring you back as a creative person. In fact, I have quite a few conversations with creative people, and many of the conversations we have is about how you make that transition from being creative to productive. And actually, we've had quite a bit. I use my wife. The old ideology of the painter having a muse is actually very well documented and very truthful within psychology. There is something to somebody who touches into the creative aspect. You almost put yourself out of this place, in what's called, what they often call the flow for creative people, and it's difficult for you to rationalize the here and now. And so to have somebody that's close to you that can gently bring you out of that place without crashing you is very, as a creative person myself, and using my wife that way is very, very necessary for me to be productive in my creativity. It allows me to transition in and out of those aspects more quickly and easily without disruption, as opposed to, the world just crashing down every time you go from one to the next.
Yeah, that's awesome. And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it falls on its face, and then you work it out. You figure out, well, maybe I need to develop this skill, But my husband definitely, he definitely inspired. I mean, he's incredibly talented, and he wrote, this book that I'm like, what the hell is in your head? How do you come up with some of this stuff? If you like monsters and aliens, you guys should check it out. It's called The Ship.
I'm sure I will.
Yeah, it's on audiobook too. He's coming out with a second book, but he was really driven to like he wrote, and he had a show on Cinemax for a year. And so definitely having that, I think, knowing I never thought I would write a book, like watching him and how he doesn't have the same challenges as I did. Like he would literally, if he's going to write, he will wake up every morning and that's it. Like done. You guys, I'm here. I'm writing, go away, leave me alone for 3 hours, and it's amazing. And to watch it, and he is obsessed. Like he has talk about, you shared with me a little bit of like your own, right? I think we would all have been diagnosed with something if we were growing up today. Right. So his OCD of like obsessive mind, it's like, he reads all the book and like, how am I going to get this? And he just wanted to come out with his book and, create himself. So to watch that is definitely something. It's like, that's amazing. So yeah, it does feed like who you surround yourself with. And my husband and I are very, very, very different people. I'm the social one. He's not. He's an introvert, but he's very creative. So yeah, definitely. And it's good to be reminded of it too, because you need to remind yourself, like those things that we do like those opposites. I would say sometimes I wish he was more social, but maybe not, maybe having those, like, having somebody, they say you meet someone on the exact extreme as you. Like they say, if you're really extrovert, like I love people, like I could be around people forever and never need a break. Like I'm like really, really extroverted. He will we'll have people over for a couple hours and he will need to go somewhere. Right. So he's like the extreme. So they say if you're one extreme, you'll attract the other extreme. So it can be hard in the middle of that tightrope, right?
The truth to those attractions. Yeah. And that's a difficult thing when you stand so far apart. When it works, when your diametric works, it's amazing. And when it doesn't, it's terrifying. Yes,
yeah.
I've been there.
So we have to remember, turn around and go, okay, this is really actually serving me. This is actually good. And then and to realize like how, it is important. We can learn from each other. So I love to hear your story of you and your wife doing that. It inspires me.
Well, there you go. I hope maybe that helps. Because one of the things, we talk about transformations. And so this process for me was not insular. I assume it wasn't for you. How was your family been affected or dealt with? I wouldn't use the term dealt, but had handled or had to make adjustments for themselves as you've gone through this change. How is it? Are there big? Because I know that my change had an enormous impact on my family.
Oh yeah.
How did it affect yours?
Well, my husband did say to me the other day, you changed a lot. I was not ready for the amount you changed, because if you see a picture from where I was and, stressed out and this and that to like now where I am, like he didn't go in to have like this health coach and like somebody who's like, making healthy food and drinking water and, like all, just all the things like, so that definitely was a big thing. And then my business, grew, and I was just, when I started this whole thing, I was working 2 jobs. I was working 60 hours a week. I was totally stressed out. I had 2 small children. I have a 5 and my daughter just turned 8, so it's funny because my son said to me the other day, so I told you I lost 37 pounds, but I'm 70 pounds less than I was when I was in high school. And my son saw this picture of me, and my hair is actually normally naturally really curly, and I do straighten it. So that's different, right? Already. And it's highlighted. So like, if you see a picture of me, you would not recognize me. And my son's like, who is that, mommy? And, it's it actually is like, I'm still working on like how I'm like, that's me. And he's like, that doesn't look like you. And so it's an interesting thing to say, like how you grow. And for me, it's definitely something that I'm aware of as a health coach, and also talking about diets a lot with women, and that my daughter is only 8 years old and she has her own crazy relationship with food. She won't eat anything, but if it's chocolate, she likes it. See, she should search for chocolate. I don't want to carry that on. I don't want her looking for chocolate like I was, but, so it's interesting because you have to watch for me as a woman, like, it's not that if, seeing somebody have extra weight, or it's not a shame, or it's not anything. It's like their mission or where they are in their life. Right. So I don't want my daughter to feel like that's, you always have to be on some kind of diet. You don't. It's just being aware and switching. So I think, it's interesting to say, how did my family? I think it's more like, it's better because I'm happier. And that is like moved everybody into more of like abundance. My mom is like, wow, she's like, you finally stuck to something. I'm like, well, finally something worked,
Yeah. It's like where the last place you looked for your keys, you stopped then. Well, yes, I stopped once I found my keys, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely takes, it's your journey, and it grows. And as I was talking to my coach today, he's like, look at you, like your daughter's gonna watch, like that anything is possible. I don't know if you saw the Pink documentary. Did you see the Pink documentary?
I have not yet.
Well, I love it. It's pretty awesome. And if you guys are watching this and you're a mom, you'll probably really enjoy it. She takes her kids on tour with her. And, if you see Pink on tour, I haven't been lucky enough to see her live, but you see she's like doing aerials, and she's in the air, and she's playing to stadiums, and she's doing crazy stuff, not only like performing and singing and dancing and all of this, but she's freaking in the air. And she brings her daughter, who's probably similar to my daughter's age, maybe about 8 years old or 9 years old. And the daughter's just watching. And it's like, wow, what's possible? Because we all saw our parents, right? So we all know that we can at least do what our parents kind of their level of success. You can imagine what that daughter is like, thinks that she could accomplish. If her mom can freaking flip her around and, have a whole stadium cheering her on, what could she do? So I think for me, that's the biggest thing. Is like, wow, the more I live my truth, the more I'm like, okay, like, because it's so easy to go, who are you to write a book? Who are you to tell your story, right? Who are you? It's like, who are you not to really live your full potential? Because people are watching and they're wondering if they can do the same. And if you second guess yourself, you're actually you're inspiring me to inspire myself as we have this conversation, right? Like, if you just go the distance, decide, like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put it out, whether I skin my knees, right? And get back up or whatnot. There's somebody that needs to hear my story, and there's somebody that needs to hear this. And the biggest thing is, no matter who reads my story, like I hope this book, to me, it's kind of like an eat, pray, love journey. So I hope that this book reaches many people, but the truth of the matter is, when I get it published, that's the ultimate validation. I've completed my mission. And I've never been a person that could say that, because I always needed some kind of validation from others. And when you can flip it and you can get that validation because you're really doing what you know in your heart, then I know my daughter will see that, and then she'll know that she can do whatever she wants. Not because I told her, but because I showed her.
Because she witnessed it. That's pretty fantastic. That's pretty amazing, huh? Man, that's a beautiful life thought right there. And so I could talk to you all day. So I'll tell you what we'll do. How about we end it on that? Because that is truly amazing. We're always looking for a good place to close it. I think that's a pretty good one right there. Thank you. I want to give everybody a chance to connect with you, because maybe you have the help that they need. So the book that you have, let's hear the name of the book one more time.
The Search for Chocolate. It's not out yet, so be prepared. It's coming out. It'll come out soon. Not yet, but that's coming. But they can also connect with me through Facebook, Pamela Brode, which is Brode, or on Instagram. But I'm definitely more active on Facebook. You can follow me. I post recipes. I have like inspirational quotes and things that you can start doing right now to feel good. I'll leave everybody with a little tip. How's that?
Please do.
Water, right? Anybody can do this for your health. It's amazing. The human body is just like Earth. right? It has the exact same amount of water. 75% of our body is made up of just like Earth. We are a mini Earth. So the best thing you can do is to drink water, because very often you might be dehydrated, you feel like you're hungry, but really you just need to drink some water. So drink your water before coffee. Coffee doesn't count. Coffee is dehydrating. I drink coffee. I'm all about coffee, but you do have to replace it with regular old water. So there's my little health tip for you, Johnny.
Stay hydrated. That's a good one right there.
Bottles are great too, by the way. If you get a bottle, it's 65 ounces, just drink that bottle. And if I like a straw, I find that all my clients, if you use a straw, it's easier to drink.
Perfect. So can future clients get a hold of you through your Facebook too, or do you have a phone number or a
Yes.
website? Or
Yes, absolutely. They can, or they can also email me at Pamela B@gmail.com.
perfect. And we'll throw that up on the screen and put it down in the comments so everybody can cut and paste it. All
Awesome.
right. Well,
thanks so much, Johnny.
You're so very welcome. Thanks for coming on the show, Pamela. Everybody, I'm John E Avocado, and we are here. And what did we do today? Once again, we dreamed, we planned, and we do. It's how we get things done. And you purpose your passion with me, John E Avocado. We'll see you guys. Hey, everybody. I wanted to talk about a few things that we discussed during the interview today. The first thing I'd like to go over is this idea of a second story. It's very important for each and every one of us, especially at times and moments of trauma, that we recognize that we're only one side of that story. If we choose to seek that other half, it's very insightful for us. We can begin to make our world be a larger place and recognize our spot within it. And then once we know where we are, we can maneuver our way around. But if we think we live within this island, if we think that this world was the only version, and if it's often incorrect or more often incomplete, then we suffer the consequences. So I want to advocate that you make sure that you always see the other side of the story. This was a very profound thing for myself, even within my own journey, recognizing that the versions of events of how they played out within my own mind were my reality and mine alone. When I connected with other people, when I created a greater community, when I began to have a shared reality with other people, that's when I really began to get insight into that small world that I've created for myself. So always make sure that you get yourself out there and connect with others, make your world bigger, especially around those very crux points. Fight with your family, a fight with a friend, a misunderstanding, or a very traumatic experience. Make sure that you suss out all of it. The next thing I want to talk about is, that misplaced guidance. Pamela had talked just a little bit about what had happened to her, about somebody had talking to her about that nobody would bother her, but men wouldn't like her if she was overweight. So the idea that someone else teaches us our fears, or even sometimes tells us incorrect, malicious, or just outright ill-informed information to children, we suffer with that for a long time if we don't begin to recognize as adults that we should question some of those directives of our childhood. I talked a little bit about that myself. The next thing I want to talk about is when we begin to get to reconnoiter our stories, when we begin to put ourselves out into the greater world and recognize that small world we lived in as part of something larger, we often lose our villain. When we have this small one-sided view of the story, there's always a bad guy on the other side. That helps us to maintain our sense of self, and to help us, we don't want to be wrong. We want to be the victim. We want the need to be given to us. And oftentimes it's very appropriate, but it's not the only version of self aspect that you should pursue in that moment. So I want to make sure that we recognize that when we lose the villain in our story, sometimes that gives us that moment of great reflection. Now, Pamela had talked about that a little bit, about how it had really almost broken her world all over again when the person that she had thought was not who she thought they were by the time that they had grown up, that they had evolved to be somebody other than just that very small moment in time. And that even though that they may have been a person or an individual then, that can grow to be somebody bigger or larger than that. The villains in our past aren't necessarily the villains in our present. And so what happens oftentimes when we devilify, then we have ourselves oftentimes become devictimified. And so that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's good for us to recognize that although we are victimized, that we don't want to live as a victim. We don't want to be a victim. We recognize the things that victimize us, to avoid them, to stay away from, to keep ourselves healthy, but we don't want to look of ourselves as victims, because then we'll continue to have that headspace where we operate this space of not of plenty, of this necessity of the survival as opposed to success and looking forward with your thoughts. So make sure that you recognize the possibility of losing your villain, and then of course losing your own victimization. So come out of that with some help and some friends as a community is really essential. And the last thing I want to talk about there along those lines is that forgiveness of self. When you recognize that you had made a mistake in your past or that you had failed someone, most especially yourself, you have to learn to forgive your past self for that transgression. You didn't know what you knew now. You didn't understand the situation as you understand it now. You probably certainly didn't have the options that you might have now. Learn to forgive yourself. You'll begin to learn to forgive others. And if we can all forgive one another in this world, it'll definitely be a better place. Start with you. Purpose your passion. Learn to dream, build, and do. And as always, I'm John E Avocado. I make shit happen. And so can you. See you next time.
Artlist.io